Blue doesn't just make cheap USB microphones. I know the company has a reputation in the streamer and content creator space for their Blue Snowball and Blue Yeti microphones, which are at one point were considered the best by people who didn't really know about better gear, but nowadays are very often memed upon. Blue is actually known for making higher-end microphones that are used in studios. Their original Baby Bottle and Bluebird and a few others were used in a lot of cool places, and they have a really unique design. Today we're taking a look at the Blue Baby Bottle SL, which is kind of a re-release of their... They have a whole SL line that's basically like a re-release of their older microphones with new housing. They kind of look very similar, but they get extra switches and things like that. And I'm pretty stoked to be checking it out as I finally, get through my review backlog. And this is actually going to a viewer who I'm already shipping this off by the time you see this video. The Blue Baby Bottle SL is a large diaphragm condenser microphone, which really just means that it has a slightly larger capsule in the microphone compared to other condensers you may have taken a look at. But realistically, in some of these scenarios, it hasn't actually been all that bigger than the microphones we've looked at. And with a microphone like the EposVox Ethos that we've looked at before, it is a small diaphragm condenser microphone, and even the entire housing of the microphone is smaller than just the capsule enclosure for the capsule inside the Blue Baby Bottle SL. So this is a case where the capsule size is a fair bit different. EposVox used those classic super small instrument capsules, whereas the one in here takes up most of this little round part of the microphone in the Baby Bottle SL, which is pretty cool. The size of the capsule, of course, means you have more physical, square area taking up space to be sensitive to audio and can tend to give you a little bit more detail and warmth depending on how you're using the microphone. For streamers and content creators, it really doesn't matter that much, but I do always enjoy how my voice sounds on these bigger microphones. They're just not always the best for less treated spaces. So you're going to hear more background noise and sounds and things like that. You're looking at a frequency response of 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, output impedance of 50 ohms, a self-noise level of 10.8 decibels, which isn't too bad. And then it has two switches on board, one for a minus 20 dB pad, which will just make it 20 decibels quieter, and then a high pass filter, which rolls off starting at 100 hertz, which is going to be pretty thin for my voice. We're going to turn it on. And now we have the high pass filter or low bass roll off switch enabled, which starts cutting off around 100 hertz. And like I said, it's probably going to sound fairly thin for my voice, but that's okay. We're going to switch it back now. Microphone comes with the shock mount and this really cool little, stylistic wood box to keep it safe, kind of like the CAD E100S does. However, the box itself doesn't actually house the shock mount, which is really annoying. So as I'm shipping this, it's really awkward to find packaging that will house both of them, but that's fine. It's an XLR microphone. It's a condenser microphone, so it'll require 48 volts of phantom power, but it doesn't require too much gain compared to dynamic microphones and harder to drive microphones. And compared to my other condensers I was just hooking it up with, it requires less gain than a lot of them, but it sounds really good. I struggle to find a frequency response graph for this microphone in particular. There's a lot for the other Blue mics, but I don't want to lead myself into making interpretations based off of the wrong graph, but they tend to have a little bit of a boost in the high ends to get some of that detail in, and then a kind of slow wave up in the low end. So you get a fair bit of warmth here as well as a decent amount of detail. Like whether it's from Blue or CAD or Lewitt, I tend to love how I sound on these larger condenser microphones because it can pick up some of the warmth of my voice. If I get all breathy, it's time to kick ass and chew bubble gum. But it also gets the crispness and the detail at the high end, so you still understand what I'm saying. A lot of the dynamic microphones, when you try to process them to sound boomy or warm or whatever, and some of the weaker condenser microphones, you lose a lot of that detail, which really helps you understand the specific words that are being said. It does make them a little bit more sibilant, so you got to play with de-essers and things like that. And obviously different kinds of voices play on different things, but I tend to really like how I sound on this microphone. So we're going to run some comparisons to some other similar microphones, and I'm going to get this bad boy packed up and shipped off. This video is sponsored by Riverside. Riverside.fm is a leading podcast and video recording platform that I actually just used to record my full interview with Mike Chi, which is already up on Nebula, talking about RetroTink and retro hardware and things like that. And I use it for my Behind the Streams podcast. It's used by, lots of people like Guy Raz, Hillary Clinton, Spotify, Disney, and more. It's super easy to join. You just give the guest a link. They join in without having to do anything complicated, and then it records audio and video locally on everyone's computers and then uploads it automatically while the podcast or whatever show you're doing is happening, and the quality no longer depends on your internet connection. So you can get nice, crisp 4K video if you want, or 1080p. You get uncompressed 48 kilohertz wave files for your audio. You can get separate tracks. You can have it automatically generate graphics views for you if you want, or you can download the files and build your own, but it does have the magic editor, which can save you a ton of editing work with just a few clips. You can upload your logo, change the background, choose your layout, and all that sort of stuff. And they even have a iOS app so that people can join on iOS with the first, real high quality video podcasting option there as well. Riverside plans start at just $15 per month. It is super affordable to get started with very high quality captures and broadcasts to build your shows. And no more screen capping video calling apps. All right. This is the way forward for high quality podcasts and interviews. I don't want to see anyone using blurry screen cap footage in their interviews anymore. There is little excuse with Riverside being as accessible as it is. Head on over to riverside.fm/EposVox and save $15 off a plan today with the code EposVox at checkout. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for the mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 7 for Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. 3 rings for the Elven Kings under the sky, 7 for the Dwarf Lords in their halls of stone, 9 for mortal men doomed to die, 1 for the Dark Lord on his dark throne in the land of Mordor where the shadows lie. This is a talking while typing test, talking while typing, tippity tap on box royal switches, talking while clicking, click, 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 talking while typing on box royale switches, talking while clicking. We're talking while typing, I keep messing that up. Talking while typing on box royale switches, talking while clicking. We're talking while typing on box royale switches, talking while clicking, talking while typing. For the price, you're paying less than $400 for this microphone, and in some cases $250, which is a really good value. This is a pretty competitive microphone. For that price, you're looking at the Lewitt LCT 440 Pure, or maybe a really good sale on the Earthworks Icon. I think both of those mics beat the Earthworks Icon in that context, as long as you have a treated environment or don't mind a lot more environment sounds, which means keyboard and mouse sounds, shifting in my chair sounds, reflections off your monitor. You have to choose your position carefully. For example, I could position it all the way back here, further away from my mouth and just kind of project and increase the gain, but you're picking up a lot more sounds bouncing off of my monitor, which is gonna really make it sound weird and make you sound a lot more thin. And of course you can get right up on it. You got to be careful with these bigger condenser mics because they are not treated for sound environments. And I've preached long enough at this point, I think, that dynamic mics are generally the best way to go as a beginner content creator. But as I am, building out my new space and that I've been fitting in here with way too much sound treatment going on to where I do have some natural room tone, and I appreciate some real room tone because it makes it sound like you're in a space and not in a closet. Most people starting out streaming and content creating should probably not go with a microphone that's going to pick up so much background noise. I think it's pretty solid, especially for the price. You can gauge for yourself based on the comparisons. Product links, as always, will be in the description down below. I'm a huge fan. I love the design of it. It makes it a little awkward to get like a pop filter or something on it, but otherwise, I love that they look different than the classic, microphone design that everyone's going with at this point. And so I want to see more microphones like this in the content creator space, as I think it works. And I think the sound here is really nice. Because the thing is, with mics like this and the Earthworks ethos, I'm able to get the sound that I want. I'm able to craft it to where, I sound the way that I think I should sound most of the time. And I still have the freedom to start doing some crazy voices. It's time to review mics and cancel some streams, and I'm all out of streams. It picks up so much detail in my voice that I can really get away with doing just about whatever I want with it. Although I would argue that some of that means that you get away with less in terms of mistakes, in terms of those background sounds, your plosives, obviously, and mouth noises and things like that. Once you start adding compressors and things like that, a lot of those mistakes or extra sounds become a little grating. Whereas something like a dynamic microphone, I have, my favorite RE20 back here. You're able to produce a really cool sounding broadcast or radio sound that cuts across your background sounds a little bit better. Condenser mics are more music oriented and vocal booth oriented. Dynamic mics are meant for broadcasts. You're meant to be able to cut across your music tracks and your game sounds or whatever you're doing. And you're able to get a more consistent sound, which I think benefits a lot of streamers specifically, because you're able to, whether you move around a little bit, as long as you're within the polar pickup pattern, you move around a little bit, you make some mouth sounds or whatever, you're able to kind of normalize a lot of that easier. But it's a less authentic sound, so to speak. It's more of a crafted sound that sounds very similar to other people with those styles of microphones, whereas these kinds of bigger condenser microphones are really going to reveal how you sound in a more unique way. And I think that's important. What's also important is that you remember to be kind, rewind.